Hello, my friends. It is Deb Colitas here, and welcome back to the Just Get to Work podcast. This is where we talk about everything AI and tech as it does with marketing and communication and what's going on. And at the end of the day, we just need to get to work. It's something not to be afraid of. It's something to embrace as we are able to make educated, quality decisions on what pushes our business and our profession forward. So let's just get to work. Today, I am not here to hype you up about AI. I'm here to show you a graph. And once you see it, you are going to understand why every marketing leader I talk to is suddenly rearranging their entire 2026 and 2027 strategy. I've been using this graph about a year now, and it's simple, and it plots how fast different technologies have climbed towards internet user capacity. Basically, the percentage of internet users who adopt a platform over time. Dial-up internet, Google, Facebook, Instagram, and now AI search. So let's take a look. These three lines are very different trajectories of three incredible technologies that we have. The first, of course, in red is the all-masterful Google. Way back in 1998, and I've talked about this a little bit in prior podcasts, is, the creation of this wonderful thing called a search engine. The internet existed, but Google and searching and ranked search was something totally new. And we can see the climb, and there's a lot of things that have to do with the climb. And we're going to talk about that as we go through. And then we have the blue, which is Facebook. Now, I use Facebook as the example for what we have with social media because it is very documented, and you have where, Facebook started in a dorm room in 2004, and then you have the growth from 2008 and beyond when it was opened up to the rest of the public. Then, of course, we have that green, and I'm wearing green to match it today. That is AI LLM search, and what a curve it is on. As you can see, these curves all have different rate of adoption. For Google, rate of adoption had a lot to do with just what hardware was available to us. Way back in 1998, goodness gracious, we were still on dial-up. It was only in my dorm room that I was able to have something called a magical Ethernet, but we were still plugged into the wall. I remember people running 100 feet of Ethernet down the hall just to play Warcraft. So the internet certainly was growing as the availability within the hardware and technology. So within that red line is, of course, our smartphones, internet, Wi-Fi, all of those exciting things. So as Facebook arrived, we were already prepped and ready and so excited to communicate with each other. There was so much of a baseline that it was able to crawl so much faster from the beginning. And so then when all of a sudden you reach AI LLM searches, it was flatline for those first couple of years because quite honestly, I remember playing around with it when it first came out and it wasn't very useful. It's a learning model. Of course it wasn't useful yet because it hadn't had enough input. That input is just being placed in exponentially, and boy, is it learning, and then is the world adopting it one thing after another. So take a mental snapshot of this because we're going to dive in deep to some discussion. So rate of adoption is simply how quickly a population, or in our case, internet users, starts using a new platform or technology measured against time. It's not just is it growing, it's how steep is that growth curve. Why do we care about steepness and not just the eventual size? Because steepness tells you how much time you have to react. A slow climbing curve gives businesses years to adjust to their marketing, their websites, their content strategy. A steep curve gives you only months. I remember as I had my daughter in 2003 and then my son in 2005. And at that point, I was home with them. My husband had a landscaping business. And I was like, I'm really interested in this stuff. I had gotten my master's in technology with education. I was like, all right, I think we need a website. So I signed up for the local community college HTML course and I began learning. I had that ability to slow curve because I think after that was like Dreamweaver. It was like, oh my gosh, we're now designing a website. Look at this. It's so much easier. So compared to WordPress and, even then the Squarespace and the Wix sites and everything else that's coming now with AI web design, it's amazing to see where we had started to where we needed to get to. But that was allowed time. So while we were the first landscape business to have a website here in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, the content strategy, it gave us the ability to learn as we went. But here's the historical comparison that should get your attention. It took Instagram 2.5 years to reach 100 million users, and TikTok did it in 9 months. Facebook about 4.5 years to hit that same 100 million mark. Those were considered fast at the time, even revolutionary. But now compare that to ChatGPT. ChatGPT had 100 million monthly active users in just 2 months. Not years, people, 2 months. And the Swiss investment bank that tracked the internet space for 2 decades came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, in that 20 years of watching consumer internet products, they'd never seen a ramp up that fast. And it's obvious. The curve hasn't slowed down. ChatGPT crossed 1 billion monthly active users by June 2026, becoming the fastest app in history to hit that milestone, according to a data report by Reuters. Weekly active users went from 300 million in December of 2024 to 400 million users by February of 2025. That's a 33% jump in just a couple of months, and keep compounding that from there. So why does the slope of this curve matter so much more than it did for Google or social media? Well, think about to when, YouTube first came out. What would your life be differently if you were one of the first YouTube streamers and you stuck with it? What would you do differently if you understood Google SEO right away and how that would impact your business, or Facebook or any other social media and how to use that platform to connect with your audience? Every other major platform shift gave marketers a runway. You had years to build an SEO strategy after Google emerged. You had years to figure out social before it became mandatory. The shift is compressing that runway down to a window measured in quarters, not years. If you're waiting for more data before you act, the curve is telling you that data will arrive after the opportunity has already moved. So what's fueling this unprecedented speed? It's actually behind AI search climbing faster and faster than anything became before it, a few forces on top of one another. First, distribution. ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Perplexity, whatever your favorite one is, these didn't need to build their own user base from zero the way Google or Facebook did. They got dropped directly into browsers, into phones, into operating systems people already had open. Apple and Google are racing to embed AI assistants into devices already in 1 billion pockets. The infrastructure for adoption already existed. AI search just had to plug into it. Second, the interaction itself requires zero learning curve. Typing a question into a box and getting an answer back in plain language isn't a new behavior people have to learn. I got to sit down with my mom a few months ago, and she was looking at a lease of a client of hers. My mom's 76 years old and sharp as a tack, but she was scared of the technology. I got her going with 3 questions, and all of a sudden, 3 hours later, she's still sitting there talking to ChatGPT like it's her best friend, getting all the answers and so excited of what she's learning and what's happening so quickly in front of her. That natural behavior, it's the most interaction, that humans have of conversation. Compare that to learning, Boolean search operators or figuring out which 10 blue links actually answers your questions. AI search has removed the friction, not added new skill sets needed. So third, and this one, marketers are underestimating all over the board. It solves the I don't want to do the work problem instantly. You can tell that as schools and universities and colleges and even workplaces are having to crack down on, people not using their own thoughts and going right into chat. That can be used advantage-wise in important places, but in other places, that's called plagiarism, people. Traditional search gives you options. AI search gives you an answer. That's an enormous psychological shift in what users expect from search as a verb. And fourth, the growth isn't just consumer side, it's structural. Data from corporate spending suggests that the share of U.S. businesses paying for AI products is approaching 40%, with some models projecting that climbing towards 80% of businesses by 2028. That's not just individuals asking ChatGPT for recipe ideas. I've done that. That's fun. It's procurement departments, marketing teams, and operations teams building AI into daily workflows. Consumer and enterprise adoption are climbing at the same time, reinforcing each other. So when you put those 4 things together, frictionless distribution, zero learning curve, instant gratification, and simultaneous enterprise buy-in, you get a curve steeper than anything we've measured before. There's a question that I'm now getting consistently, and I'm wrestling with it myself. Has Google peaked? Have they run out of room to grow? The honest answer? Not yet, but the shape of its curve is starting to bend. Google's user base is enormous, by some estimates handling somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 to 14 billion searches a day globally. That number alone tells you Google has saturated most of the addressable internet population already. There aren't huge untapped pools of internet users who simply never used a search engine. In that sense, yes, in terms of raw reach, Google has been close to capacity for a while now. The same way a market matures once nearly everybody who's going to buy in has. Think of my age. When everybody had a Cabbage Patch Kid, it was market capacity. So we've been talking about Google and max capacity having, kind of floated there for a while. With this dramatic curve of AI search, how quickly is that going to also reach a capacity? Gartner, they have a headline prediction that by 2028, traditional search engine traffic will drop by 50% as AI-powered answers replace click-through results. That's their big number, and it's been one of the most repeated in marketing circles. They've stated this comes from their Predict 2025 search and AI research, and that consumers will increasingly rely on AI assistants that synthesize answers without sending us users to a website at all. But this also reflects upon, is your website any less important? Of course not, because where is the AI search getting their answers from? Your website and many other places where we're going to talk about your content needs to be. But Gartner actually has a nearer-term checkpoint too. So back in February 2024, they predicted by 2026, which is right now, traditional search engine volume would drop 25%, with search marketing losing share to AI chatbots and virtual agents. They've been aggressive, so they see this as a two-stage curve. 25% bite by 2026, then 50% bite by 2028. That does follow that exponential curve model, and I have seen that with some clients in certain industry where they have exponentially lost their Google search results for an AI-based search. Doctors, lawyers, anybody providing, answers that has to do with, information, how to fix a car, how to, nurse your baby. These are all things that you're looking for knowledge to then elevate your ability and experience to be able to fix a problem. Then there's our farm. We really haven't seen that much of a drop yet at all, but I do know from asking our visitors, they're using AI search to figure out what they're doing this weekend and where they're going to go pick strawberries. Now, who else is in this conversation besides Gartner? A few names worth knowing. Industry analysis, Kevin Indig, was published extensively on this shift, often cited alongside Gartner's number when researchers build out adoption timelines. Sparktural has done independent research into search volume trends that other analysts lean on to sanity check Gartner's projections. And research firms TTMS, synthesizing several of these sources, lays out a broader timeline worth knowing. They describe 2026, right now, as an inflection point. 2027 is the year AI-driven traffic starts delivering equal or greater economic value than traditional search, even at lower volume, because of dramatically higher conversion rates. And then that 2028 as the real tipping point, with consensus estimates putting LLM-based search at 30 to 50% plus usage shares, and then jumping between 2028 to 2030. That's a lot of information in a short amount of time. And what do you need to remember? You're paying attention. You're here with the Just Get to Work team, and let's do this together and continue figuring out how we need to make sure that our customers, clients, potential business, and those valued in our community are finding us, our knowledge, and our services and products when they need to most. So here's worth noting. Not everyone treats these numbers as gospel. Search engine, land has pushed back on the certainty of Gartner's predictions before, pointing out that Gartner forecasts are, estimates, not guarantees, and that, there's other been predictions that have needed to be walked back in the past, like an earlier claim that half of consumers would abandon social media by 2025. I just got about 5 alerts from Facebook and Instagram during even recording this today. So some analysis tracking current chatbot traffic notices that even with explosive growth rates, AI chatbot traffic still represents a small single-digit percentage of total information-seeking traffic today, meaning the disruption is directional and real. But we're not living in a post-Google world yet. But we also love our authentic relationships, and that should never be abandoned. So here's my honest synthesis in putting things together. Nobody's claiming AI search has already replaced Google. What multiple analysts agree on is the trajectory. And this is what I'm seeing with my work with my clients and as people, reach out to me every day. The timeline clusters tightly around 2026, where we're at, through 2028, as the adoption rate continues to shift and is undeniable in the end in the data, not just the headline. What does this mean for you competing for search visibility? Let's break it down to ground level. The first thing to understand is that the search pie isn't just shrinking for traditional engines, it's being severed differently. It's now becoming two different entities. ChatGPT alone now processes around 1.6 billion queries a day, roughly 12% of Google's total search volume, but sends dramatically less traffic to individual websites than Google search does. That's the part that should worry every marketer in the room. AI search doesn't click through your website. It absorbs your content, synthesizes an answer, and the user often never lands on your page at all. This is the rise of zero-click search. The primary metric of success is no longer a click-through rate. It's whether your brand appears as the cited definitive source within the AI's generated response. And the data on this is already showing impact. AI-generated summaries are reducing average click-through rates by roughly 15.5%, with non-branded searches seeing declines as steep as 20%. Here's the flip side, and this is genuinely good news if you act fast enough. Research has found that AI search visitors convert up to 23 times better than regular search visitors. What does that mean? Well, it means if you are showing up in that AI search summary, people are 23% more likely to actually remember you, trust it, and move forth with the data. It might not end up with a click right away, but we are taking that as information that is trusted. AI-driven traffic converts at roughly 4.4 times the rate of traditional organic search. So the volume of traffic from AI search may be lower, but the quality, the intent, and the conversion rate are dramatically higher. So are you paying attention to this in your digital business plan and where you need to get your voice and your opinions and your product heard? You're not necessarily losing the pie, you're getting a smaller, denser slice of it, but it's time to fight for it. So this risk isn't theoretical either. One analyst estimates that the average enterprise is already losing $600,000 or more per year in what is being called the AI invisible revenue. Deals that never even enter the pipeline because AI discovery systems simply can't find, understand, or cite the business. That's not a future problem. That is a today problem for companies that haven't structured their content to be machine readable and citation worthy. So the businesses that win this transition won't be the ones with the most content. They'll be the ones whose content AI systems trust enough to cite by name. I'm sure you're like, okay, Deb, this is great. We've hung on here. What do we do about it? Let's land the plane. If you're a business owner or marketing professional listening to this, let's go through three things. One, and I've mentioned this before, your AI visibility, you need to audit it. Not like SEO. So go ask ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity questions your customers would ask about your industry. See if your brand shows up. See if it's accurate. See if it's cited at all. If users encounter your brand inside an AI answer, that builds awareness without even a click. And research shows that exposure often correlates with increased direct traffic later, as people who saw your name in an AI response come back and type your URL indirectly. But you can't manage what you haven't measured. Your existing SEO dashboard isn't telling you that story. Number two, restructure your content for machine comprehension, not just human readers. I don't say replace the human readers. You need to restructure your content for that machine comprehension. This means clear, direct answers to specific questions near the top of your content. That means proper schema markup so AI crawlers understand exactly what your page is about. It means building genuine semantic depth on topic instead of just chasing individual keywords, because AI systems are not looking for the source that covers the subject with real expert-level nuance, not the page that happens to rank for the most search terms. This is the technical groundwork. Bot and crawler access, structured data, fast rendering pages without heavy JavaScript walls. That determines whether AI systems can even read your site in the first place. And then three, invest in being a citable authority, not just a visible one. Get help for all of this. Reach out to Focus Point. Reach out to a PR friend. Reach out to your teenager. Whoever it is, AI summaries typically pull from only a small handful of sources. So the algorithms are prioritizing the content with the highest established trust and expertise signals. What's known in the industry as EEAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Whew, it's a lot to say. That means real author bios, real credentials, real off-site authority through being referenced by other trusted sources. Being the loudest voice in your space matters less now than being the most trusted one. Where can you place your influence online to be mentioned, for your product to be showcased, for your service to be appreciated? Here's the bottom line. The curve on that graph isn't just a forecast anymore. It's a measurement of something already happening. I'm not going to stand by 2028 as the be-all end-all, but let me tell you, I am working my butt off with my clients right now to make sure that we are prepared and we are ready, because that is the advantage that we have over others that are still in the cloud right now. Google took years to saturate its market. AI is doing it in a fraction of the time, and the analysis tracking it, Gartner included amongst all the others I've mentioned, all point to that same window. Now, to 2028 and 2030 as the period this becomes unmistakable in the numbers, not just the headlines. So like me, don't panic, but you do need to move. When you see the waters rising, do you buy a boat or do you just sit there going, where's the dry land going? The businesses that show up in AI answers 2 years from now are the ones building that authority now, today, while most of the competitors are still arguing about whether this is real. That's the show. That's the work to get done. And I question you, are ready to just get to work? Contact me. Let me know how I can help. Drop a comment below. Please smash that like button and subscribe. As a community, we're going to be able to help each other more and be more powerful as we make sure those who are staying ahead of the game are the ones playing the game in the years ahead. So thank you, my friends. From my heart to you, you have a blessed day.